All right, everybody, welcome back to the Horn Takes podcast, your very rough around the edges Texas sports talk destination. I'm your host, Sean Redfern. It's been a couple weeks, but we're back. It's Friday. We had to miss last week because we had a road trip for high school baseball. This week we are playing here in town. Still alive. I believe it's the regional quarterfinals round. Playing a team out of our district. All four teams in our district are still in the playoffs. So that's pretty good. I don't know that there's another district in the state of Texas in 5A that has that going on. So congrats to all those young men. Should be a hell of a series. We're going to be over at Dan Law Field tonight and early tomorrow morning. I say early, 10:30 a.m. With a game to follow if necessary. Lubbock Cooper against Lubbock Monterey. So Lubbock Monterey's got a pretty good team this year. We've played them 3 times already. We've taken 2 from them, but they were all 3 really close games. So should be a really good series. Nonetheless, it is Friday. We're excited about that. You guys know we love Fridays. We got to talk about some Texas baseball. The guys have been hot the last few weeks. We got some game times that we got to talk about for the first 2 weeks of the Texas Longhorn football season. And then is there a pivotal 3-game stretch? And is it something you might not – is it a 3-game stretch that you might not consider a pivotal 3-game stretch? Is that going to define Texas's season? We'll talk about that a little bit. And by the way, that is a topic that I did not think of myself. Chris Phillips and the guys over at SEC Sports or SEC Unfiltered – they do a great job of tagging me and all kinds of stuff. I really enjoy it. I like to be a part of their discussion. And that's one of the topics they posted about earlier this week. So I figured I'd steal it and give it some run on this show. We'll see how that goes. We got some bonus football news for you guys. And I'm going to have to toot my own horn a little bit later in the show. I don't like to necessarily do that, but I got beat up pretty bad on some stuff in a few different places. That's relevant to what we're going to talk about. And then we got to talk a little bit about this Dabo Sweeney nonsense with the whole transfer portal thing. It's an interesting hill to die on if you're Dabo Sweeney. We'll talk about that. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. If you just like to listen to podcasts, you can find us at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. If you're watching this right now, you're watching it on YouTube. If somehow you see a clip of this, first of all, I didn't authorize it. Second of all, you can find us on YouTube at Horn Takes as well. Lots of videos up on Horn Takes. This is episode 144, I believe. So we've been doing this not quite 2 years. And I'm not rich and famous yet, and I don't understand why, but we're going to keep at it because we love doing it. I have a good time talking about Texas sports. And a really good time. You know what's really cool is meeting people out in public. We were sitting down at a restaurant, I don't know, maybe 4 weeks ago. It was on a Friday. As a matter of fact, I just got done recording the show for that week, and we ran up over to this little pizza place that's just right around the corner from where we live. We were finishing up. My wife gets up to go to the ladies' room. I'm getting ready to head out to the car, and I see these guys looking at me. They're there with their lady friends. And one of them says something to me. I couldn't hear what they were saying. So I hope they don't think I was being rude. It just kind of caught me off guard, and I sort of leaned over and walked over to the table and leaned over and said, "I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you." And they're like, "Oh, are you the Horn Takes guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." And that's like, awesome, man. So there's a lot of Texas fans in Lubbock. For those of you that don't know, a lot of them have to closet it up. But I've never been like that. I've been wearing Texas shit around Lubbock since we moved here in 2015. So I don't, it doesn't bother me. I've heard it all. I can deal with it. But some Texas fans don't like to get beat up, so they don't wear that stuff. I think that'll go away a little now that we're not in the same conference. We'll just have to see. But anyway, that's what I really enjoy. And I see this all the time. And it's weird. I'm not trying to say I'm famous or anything crazy like that, but almost every time I go to a Texas sporting event, which is always football. It's a long way to Austin to go watch some baseball, although I wish I could. Someone says they recognize me, and that's kind of neat. It's good to talk to those folks. Seen some folks at the State Fair last year during Red River Shootout weekend. That was cool. So anyway, let's talk about this Texas baseball team. They are 33-20, 18-10 in the Big 12, and have really kind of gone on a tear lately. I think they have won 11 of 14 games. They've won their last 3 series, 2 of those series against ranked teams from Oklahoma. So really sort of getting hot at the right time. And we've talked about it on this show over and over and over again. That's really all college baseball is about. Really, Major League Baseball, getting hot at the right time. The Rangers were not the best team in Major League Baseball last season, but they got hot at the right time, and they were the best team throughout the playoffs and through the World Series. Therefore, they're World Series champs. And we see it all the time in college. Most of the time, the team that does so well all season and everybody thinks is invincible winds up, in a lot of cases, not even making it to Omaha. And then when they do get to Omaha, they don't always win the whole thing. LSU did a great job last year of sort of doing that. But you just don't see it that much. And there's probably, I think there's probably 15 teams across the country that if they get hot and start playing some really, really good baseball, have the ability to go win the College World Series. So it'll be interesting to see how this postseason shakes out. They go up to Okie State. They win the first 2 games, which is something they haven't done very much of. They usually, at least up until that point, have lost the Friday game. And they won 2 Friday nights in a row, folks. And really 3 now when you count the opener against Kansas last night. What a hell of a game that was. We'll talk about it in a little bit. But yeah, man, just really cool to see. I think the pitching has kind of settled in. It's not great. In fact, it can be mediocre, but you know what it's done? It's gotten consistent. It's not where, you know, you might get a guy that goes 6-7 innings and then the next time he might go 1.5 or 2 innings. That's not happening that much anymore. The starters are starting to leg it out to 5-6 innings, and I think there's enough arms in the bullpen that if they can turn it over to the bullpen, the starters can turn it over to the bullpen with just a third of the game left. Generally, it's a pretty good thing for Texas baseball. So, been really good. You know, Max Ballou has been a guy that's just been smashing the baseball. That dude hits the ball hard. It is fun to watch him hit because he just absolutely crushes the baseball. A lot of times it gets caught because he mashes it right at people, and that's going to happen. That's why baseball is such a sick game, because you can do everything right as a hitter and put the ball in play and put it in play hard. But there's 8 guys standing back there behind the pitcher that do not want you to get on base. So it's always interesting. So, yeah, they win the first 2 games. The third game of that Okie State series, they didn't look that great. You know, it is what it is. Winning series is what baseball is all about. You're not going to win them all. But if you can win series consistently, you got a really good shot at being there at the end. And I think, you know, for a Texas fan like myself, that's all I'm really looking for, this team being there at the end. And then they go on the road and take 2 of 3 against UCF. They won the Friday night game, lost Saturday, come back and win the Sunday game. Again, Grubbs goes 5 2/3 in that first game. Bam came in and got a really good save, and what a pleasant surprise Gage Bam has been. The only blemish I can remember for Gage Bam, and I don't want to ruin it because we'll talk about it in a minute, was last night, honestly. This team, again, man, the bats are starting to get hot. One thing that I don't understand, and I don't want this to be like I'm not nitpicking and I'm not trying to like take shots at these guys, but really this team started to get hot when Porter Brown and Jack O'Dowd came out of the lineup. And then lo and behold, last night we see Porter Brown and Jack O'Dowd in the lineup. And I know they're seniors, man, and trust me, I get the whole playing time thing. I get rewarding kids for working hard. I totally get it. You have no idea how much I get it. I don't understand that, man. They just do not produce at the level that some of the other guys can. I mean, when you start to take I thought Borba was doing a hell of a job at first base. I thought it was great to have JT out in center field. I just don't get it, man. We'll have to see if that continues to be a thing. I hope not, because I think, Porter Brown sort of has come on a little bit late in the season, from like the halfway point on. But Jack O'Dowd has just very much been in a slump, literally all season. The thing with Jack O'Dowd, he's got some power. When he hits the ball, it's a good hit usually. It just doesn't happen enough. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Game 2 in that series against UCF, Boogie could only get 4, and that's kind of uncharacteristic for him. And honestly, he might have got yanked a little bit early. Might have been a little bit premature. There's a it's funny, man. David Pierce, the first few years, I always felt like he left pitchers in there too long, and sort of just waited for the wheels to completely come off before he would take a guy out. And now sometimes I feel like he overreacts too soon. You're never going to please everybody. You're certainly not going to please me. And I will be mad at you for one thing, and then until you fix it, and then I'll be mad at you for the opposite thing. That's just the way I am with sports, man. That's the way I go. Then LBJ on Sunday, man. LBJ on Sunday was kind of the weirdest thing. He was absolutely cruising through 4 innings. I mean, it looked great. And then in the 5th inning, man, the wheels just absolutely came off. And you know what? You know what it is? And I've talked about this before. When these guys get base runners, they change something. Something changes for them, whether it's mentally, physically. It's got to be mentally. They just, for lack of better terms, they just kind of piss down their legs when they get base runners sometimes. And unfortunately, a lot of these guys in the Texas bullpen and on the pitching staff, they issue a lot of walks, and they issue a lot of leadoff walks. And, man, we saw it last night. You just cannot do that. Absolutely killer on these walks. So, yeah, LBJ, man, it's been a struggle. It's been odd. It's just been an odd year. I have to think. I think I looked it up, and he's on his 3rd pitching coach in the last 5 years or 4 years or however long he's been at Texas. So you just have to think that that many different coaches having that many different philosophies has really put him in a bad spot this year. He just does not look the same. And I know everybody calls that a sinker pitch. It is not. I don't think it's a sinker pitch. He may be holding it differently than he's holding his regular fastball, but that pitch does not sink. That pitch just starts out really low in the strike zone and keeps going low because he's so over the top. If you've not seen LBJ pitch, he's got to be the most over-the-top pitcher I've ever seen. And he's a big guy. I think he's 6'5", 6'6". So when he comes over the top, man, the angle is super steep on that ball coming in. And he just overthrows that pitch a lot, and it's not even competitive. It's not even close. So it's not that this ball is moving away from hitters late. At least in my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm open to the fact that I'm wrong. But to me, it looks like a straight fastball that just starts low in the zone and just continues to go down because he's so far over the top. And it's just not a competitive pitch. And I think this year especially, he's gotten away from that breaking ball, which is a really deadly pitch, especially if you can command your fastball. A really good breaking pitch off of that can be very tough. Watch Gage Bang pitch. That is exactly fastball, breaking pitch, just a wipeout slider that he has. It's hard on hitters, and I think he's gotten away from that, and he feels more comfortable, I guess, or maybe Pierce feels more comfortable because he's calling the pitches. Someone in that dugout, I'm pretty sure it's Pierce, calling those pitches. Maybe he's just more comfortable with that quote-unquote sinker. So anyway, Yeah, but though Gage Bain with 2 saves over the weekend, he's really, really coming on. So the baseball team, 4 weeks ago, I was ready to get the shovels out and bury them. I just felt like maybe it was longer than 4 weeks. So whenever that BYU series was, and then so they lost the BYU series, and then they lost the midweek against some bums. I was just like, man, this team's just done, man. They just do not have it. And credit to them. They have fought their asses off all season long, and they've got themselves in a really good position in the Big 12. They're not going to win it. Oklahoma has that wrapped up, but they've got a really good shot at taking that second seed, which would be huge because the number 1 and number 2 seed in the Big 12 tournament get to miss the first round of that tournament. So they don't have to play that game. They get to rest, kind of get those pitchers back to somewhat normal. Somewhat within their routine, I guess you would say. But state of the program, they got to get to 6, man. I think if anything, they have got to get to 6. And what I mean by that, they got to score 6 runs. Someone, I believe it was Nash, Talks Texas, went back. And I follow this guy on Twitter. I'm not best friends with Nash. I just follow him on Twitter. He has a lot of cool stuff that he puts out there statistics-wise. And so he posted something a while back. Their record when they get to 6 is almost unbeatable. And when they don't, they almost cannot win games. So this team offensively really has to be there. And we've been saying that. We've been saying that this team's got to gorilla ball their way through whatever postseason they go through. And I still believe that. But again, kudos to those guys, man. They fought really hard all season. I think, again, man, much like last season, the pitching has sort of been the bugaboo for this team all season long. And I think a lot like last year, it's gotten a little more stable towards the end of the year. I don't think so. Last year at the end of the season and headed into, the regionals, it was really good. Like the pitching had kind of become, I wouldn't say a strength of the team, but it was like, it was holding its own, right? It was doing its part. And I don't think this year's pitching is quite there yet. But again, it's good. It's good enough, especially if the bats are on, which they generally are. That's one of the best offensive teams we've seen at Texas. So we'll just have to see, man. They're in the postseason. I'm not saying they couldn't play themselves out of the postseason, but it would have to be sort of an epic meltdown for this team to miss out on the postseason at this point. And I've seen them as high at D1 baseball's latest projections for the tournament. They're a 2 seed, and they're a 2 seed in that College Station regional, which for me, I don't like that at all. I don't mind playing Texas A&M. I think it would be great for baseball. It'd be great for the rivalry. I just think it's a bad draw. I just think in general, if you're a 2 seed, you want to be moving up the ranks as a 2 seed as much as you can, so you're not playing those 1 through 8, the number 1 overall seed guys, the super regional hosts. You don't want to be playing those guys in the regional if you can get away from it. So Texas A&M, I think at this point in these projections, is falling down to the 4th seed overall. Still a really good baseball team. They struggled. I think they've lost their last 2 SEC series. They got a win last night against Arkansas on a freaking bases loaded walk. 0-0 game going into the 9th inning for those guys, or going into the bottom of the 9th for those guys. So we'll see. I don't know. I think that's the first. That is the first game that Arkansas has lost, and I forgot the kid's name, but their ace. Has not lost a game all season. He's probably gotten no decisions, but he hasn't lost until last night. So yeah, A&M's a hot team. You want to try to avoid that. You want to get into the 9 through 16 teams, and those are teams that Texas has actually gone and beaten. Those types of teams, so beaten in series. So anyway. We'll have to see. They're definitely not going to play themselves into a top 16 type thing where they're hosting a regional. So that ain't going to happen. So they're going to go on the road. And if they make it to Omaha, they're going to have to go on the road twice to do it. So it'll be interesting to see how all this plays out. man, I don't know. If you would have told me 5 weeks ago this team would be a 2 seed, I would tell you you're freaking crazy. I was just sitting there going, man, they're not even going to make it at this point, just the way they're playing. So shows you how much I know. I am not immune to the emotions and sort of hysterics that fans go through. Some fans, not all fans, but most fans, I think. The definition of fans is people that are fucking ridiculous, and I can be that way, especially about Texas sports. So I'm not immune to that, but man, I was just, this is rough. KU series. KU came in last night 28-19, 14-13, or no, 15-12 in Big 12 play. They were 29-18 on the season. So they got a new coach a couple years ago, and he has done a really good job with that program. They've gotten much better since he got there. And I'm not saying Kansas by any means is a powerhouse team, but they've got a good record. They play solid baseball, and that Texas win last night was a wild one. You saw, I think Texas had a 2-0 lead. Then it became and it was like 2-1 or something like that, or I don't even know, man. That game was so crazy. I don't even remember exactly. All I know is not a lot of scoring in that game headed into the ninth inning. And the funny thing was Texas hitters had hit a few balls last night that coming off the bat, I kind of said to myself, that's gone. And for whatever reason, I think it was really moist in the air last night in Austin, which it is a lot anyway, but they just had some really bad storms earlier that evening, that afternoon. So I think the air was heavy. It wouldn't surprise me if it was a little cool down there. And that stuff just crushes a baseball. I don't know which direction the wind was blowing, but and it may not have been blowing at all, but anyway, the balls were just dying. A lot of really hard hit balls that maybe on a nice sunny afternoon are getting out of the park pretty easily were just dying about the warning track. And so this kid comes in for KU, and somehow, man, I don't even know what happened exactly. There was a couple guys on base or one guy on base. Kid from KU just absolutely smokes one over into the Yeti yard. So a pretty good pop. And I was like, "There's no way that just happened." I freaking posted on Horns 24/7 in the little game thread. Like, I was like, "There's no way that just happened," because Texas, despite the fact the score wasn't, they didn't have a big lead at all, but they had the lead the whole game, and it just looked like, there was never really much of a doubt that they were gonna figure out a way to pull it off. Gage Bame was the pitcher. He had come in the 8th, and he was trying to close it out in the 9th. And he just doesn't give up home runs. And he hung a slider, it looked like, and the kid put it out. Kudos to him. And so we're going into the bottom of the 9th, down 4-2, I believe, maybe 3-2. Yeah, 3-2. That's what it was. So it was 2-1. The kid hits a 2-run home run, makes it 3-2, headed into the bottom of the 9th inning. And I'll be damned if Coach Pierce doesn't pinch hit Borba, who we talked about earlier, who in my opinion has been just hitting the ball pretty well. He's not nothing amazing, but he's been doing better than Porter Brown or Jack O'Dowd for sure. He comes in pinch hit and just fucking smacks one over the fence, and I'm like, you gotta be shitting me again! Like, no way. So they tie it up at 3s. I believe Kansas issued a walk to JT. And then Jalen Flores comes in and just freaking smokes one into the gap in right center field. The kid for Kansas almost gets a glove on it to catch it. Obviously, he's stretching out, diving for that ball, and can't make the play. So JT was able to score from first pretty easily on that play. Texas walks it off. Pretty amazing end of that game, considering the entirety of the game. And I think it just really kind of personifies this team, man. They just have not quit, and they will not quit, and they just keep swinging. And sometimes it works for them, sometimes it doesn't. More often than not, when they go up there and just swing, man, they're pretty damn good offensively. So crazy win last night. I was sitting there thinking to myself after that kid hit that 2-run home run, man, this one's gonna sting. This was like a nut punch. And again, I'm not immune to the ridiculous reactions. Some might call them overreactions, but I was sitting there going, man, could this be when the wheels come off? Like, is this the moment that the wheel? Because I still feel like this team is not immune from the wheels coming off. They're that sort of streaky, I guess, especially, again, from the pitching side. So, anyway, they play tonight, 6:30, see if they can go ahead and take this series, and then they'll play tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. To finish it out. All the games are on the Longhorn Network, all on Longhorn Radio Network. And, man, Zeke and Zonk, man, I hope those guys kind of migrate over to the SEC network and can call some baseball games. I think that fans of SEC baseball would really enjoy to hear those guys call games. They've been calling games for Texas on the Longhorn Network for a really long time. Greg Swindell and Greg Moreland. So they're about to wind down their Longhorn Network career. And again, I really hope they find a spot to land because they are good. They are good to listen to. A lot of interesting insight, not only on baseball in general, but like obviously both of those guys are really plugged into Longhorn baseball. They were both very good pro baseball players. So a lot of cool stuff there. So yeah, man, Texas baseball just refuses to do what I think they were going to do or what I thought they were going to do. And they just keep swinging the sticks, man. We'll see how this series turns out. We'll see what happens in that Oklahoma State series. I think if Texas wins one more game in this series and Oklahoma State loses one game in their series against Houston, that Texas will be the 2 seed in the Big 12 tournament. And again, that would be a big deal. So, and I think if Texas sweeps, it doesn't matter what Oklahoma State does. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Texas has to sweep and Oklahoma State has to lose one. We'll just see how it turns out. Early season game times have been set, folks, for a couple of the first 2 games of the season. And one of these, the Michigan game got set a while back. We just haven't talked about it. But this August 31st home opener against Colorado State is a damn 2:30 p.m. game, folks. 2:30 in the afternoon on August 31st. Man, who hates us? Is all I got to say. I mean, I know Colorado. I mean, I think Colorado State is probably tough team, tough guys. I mean, you're not a college football player if you're not tough, right? It's just, I don't think. But my God, that is brutal. 2:30, like they might not recover from this. So I remember back in the day, we went to this family reunion in Utah in August. And it got so cold that like we had to go to, we weren't expecting it. We're stupid Texans, right? We didn't realize we were going to a place where it was still cold in August. And it wasn't cold, but cool, very cool. And so we had to go like buy clothes and shit. Like we went to a water park. We had to leave because it was just too cold to be in the water. All the other people, the local Utah people, living it up, having a great time. At like 80 degrees outside. But the day we flew home, it was like 45, 50 degrees that morning in August. And I just remember thinking to myself, man, this is awesome. But so I thought of that the other day. And so I looked up the average temperature in Colorado Springs in August. And the average high is 82 degrees, folks. So, man, it's going to be 100 degrees at least on October 31st when Colorado State comes to town. And it's going to be pushing like 130, 135 down on the floor at Darrell K. Royal. Those dudes are going to melt, man. Holy shit. And man, for the fans, I've been in Darrell K. Royal when it has been extremely hot. So, folks, if you're going to this game, please drink water for like, and I'm talking like gallons of water for like 3 days. Take your salts, get you some Celtic sea salt. Get hydrated because it is going to be a mess. And I know all you crazy bastards are going to be drinking beer all morning long. That's what I would be doing. I won't be at this game, at least at this point. I don't think I'm going to be at this game. Holy shit, man! It should be like a it should just be a rule. If you're playing in Texas before October, no day games. Just shouldn't be a thing. So anyway, I feel sorry for the Colorado State fans, the players, the coaches, the equipment folks, the trainers. It is going to be, and there is no way they can practice for that unless they just want to spend the whole week in Texas. Maybe they do that. I don't know. Seems kind of extreme to me, but anyway, whoever scheduled that shit, like, just fuck you, man. That is crazy. And then the Michigan game time is set for 11 a.m. Central Time. I thought getting out of the Big 12, we were going to get away from this big noon Fox shit. But the first big non-con game we're playing against is Michigan, and the Big Ten has a Fox contract. So, yay. And usually I don't mind, like, I don't necessarily mind an 11 a.m. kick. I especially don't mind it for the Red River Shootout. I think that that's a good time for the Red River Shootout. I think if you give Texas fans and Oklahoma fans up until 2 o'clock drinking since 9 o'clock, wax beers and eating corn dogs and shit like that there's going to be some problems at 2:30. Now, I've been to some 2:30 games at the Cotton Bowl for the Red River Shootout, but generally I just think 11 a.m. is good enough, man. You can, you get up, you have some beers, you have some corn dogs, whatever you like. You go watch the game, and then you got time after that if you want to cruise around the fair, check out the exhibits and all that kind of stuff. So I'm good with that one. But it is really hard for me to imagine a big-time non-conference game between the defending national champions and what's probably going to be a top 5 ranked Texas team kicking off at 11 a.m. I mean, it's going to be, and it's 12 o'clock their time, but it's going to be like 9 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. I don't know, man. Just seems weird to me. The other thing, on a personal level, we're going up to Ann Arbor. We're going to go watch this game. Always been one of my bucket list stadiums to go check out the Big House. So we're going to do that. And I was really hoping to kind of be able to spend some time checking out the game day atmosphere in Ann Arbor. And who knows, maybe they'll keep going after the game and we can do that. But selfishly, I was really hoping I was hoping it'd be a night game. I think that would be pretty badass, a night game in the Big House against Michigan. But alas, it's not going to happen. And now, we're kind of going to be rushing to get on campus, find a place to settle in for a little bit, and then get into our seats. So, I don't like you, scheduling person that did that. The big question, will 3 games define Texas's season? And I think if you're a lot of college football fans or Texas fans, when you hear that, you're thinking like Oklahoma, Georgia, and Michigan, right? But no, our friends over at the SEC Unfiltered, I keep wanting to say the SEC. It's not the SEC. It's just SEC Unfiltered. They've been doing this for a while. They've been doing this for the last few weeks, kind of putting out, if I told you that these 3 games would define X team's season, would you agree or disagree? And for Texas, they came up with Arkansas, on the road at Arkansas, a home game against Kentucky, and then a road game down in College Station as the 3 games that were in question, right? Would these 3 games define Texas? And a lot of, I think, just looking at those games, so how good Arkansas is to me doesn't necessarily matter. Like, going into Fayette-Nam is not fun. And Arkansas is going to have a hard-on for that game. The fans there are going to have a hard-on for that game. That is going to be a test. Now, I think if you put those 2 teams on any other field in America on that day, Texas would probably beat them by 4 or 5 touchdowns. But they're not going to play on any other field in America that day. They're going to play in Fayette-Nam. And that's just a tough place to play. The last time Texas went up there, and granted, this was Steve Sarkisian's first year, Granted, he didn't have the guys, especially in the trenches, that he wanted to have, but Arkansas put it on Texas. And so the welcome to the SEC shit, like, kind of took flight at that point. And then a home game against Kentucky. Now, and Kentucky's not a great team. I kind of like Kentucky. To me, is kind of like Texas Tech of the SEC. Like, they're never going to win anything in the SEC. They're never going to be the SEC champions in football. They're just not. And until maybe this year, or going forward with the realignment, now that OU and Texas are out, Texas Tech never win in the Big 12. They might have a shot now. I don't know. But it just wasn't going to happen for them. But they damn sure could mess up somebody else's season. And I think what Mark Stoops has built there is the kind of team, just the kind of team that's real blue collar, and they're a running team, and they're just going to find ways to win some games that they shouldn't necessarily win. I mean, they've beat ranked Florida teams the last 3 seasons, and I know that last year's Florida team was not all that great. I don't even think the one that was before it was all that great. But they're beating ranked teams, and they're playing against other. I mean, they beat Louisville last year at the end of the season to kind of dork things up for Louisville. So, yeah, I just think these road games at Fayette-Nam and this road game in Colleyville, it's going to be pretty hostile. And lots of bad blood. I mean, these Aggies have been waiting since 2011 to sink their teeth into some Texas, and they're going to get to in College Station, and that place has changed significantly since 2011. They've pumped a lot of money into that stadium. The fan base has kind of gone ridiculous with the SEC stuff. So I just think. I get where they're coming from. I understand why they're picking that set of 3 games. And here's what I think they were getting at. I think what they're getting at, and remember, no, he didn't say, SEC Unfiltered did not say, are these the 3 toughest games on Texas's schedule? I saw a lot of responses saying these are easy games. They'll be 3-0, 2-1 at worst. Most responses were like that. And I don't think that's what he was saying. He's not saying these are the 3 toughest games. What he's saying, or what the question he posed was will this 3-game stretch define Texas's season? And I think it could, and here's why. Texas has a lot of front-loaded tough games. They've got Michigan the second week of the season. They play a few more games, and then they got Oklahoma in the Red River Shootout. And then they got Georgia at home. So around the midway point, and you look at the schedule, and you just look at the schedule and what the teams were last year, their 3 toughest games are gone after that sort of mid-year point, right? What if they go through that? What if Texas somehow manages to make it through that beginning part of the schedule? They make it to the midpoint. Say they're undefeated, or maybe they've just a 1-loss team at that point. Right at that point, they're still firmly in the college football playoff. They're firmly in command for the SEC. Having a shot at the SEC championship. And you look at the rest of their schedule, and there's not much to it. But that stretch of 3 games, not only is it that those teams aren't great. At least we don't expect those teams to be great next season. But there's those 2 tough road games with a game at home sandwiched in between against a pretty, like a dangerous team, like a Texas Tech dangerous team. We can sneak up on you and beat you when we shouldn't. So I think that's kind of what prompted SEC Unfiltered's question more than thinking that those were tough games. So I think it could define their season. They could, let's say they're undefeated at the halfway point, or a 1-loss, whatever you're comfortable with. They're that record, but they're in command, and they kind of go into that stretch at the end of the season kind of thinking they got it all wrapped up, and they don't play well. They could lose one of those games. They could lose 2 of those games. Or this could be the stretch of the season where they pull their pants on, lace up the boots, and go finish. So I don't think the question's that far out of line. And I know that SEC Unfiltered they're doing this for all the teams. It's the games you don't think. But I think there's a little bit of sort of insight and truth into that 3-game stretch, and that's why they brought it up. We'll see. We'll see. I would certainly hope that if Texas is in that type of shape heading into that stretch, that they would take care of business in that stretch. But I think you look at teams in the SEC that have tripped up. They trip up in those rivalry games, or they trip up in those games that nobody expects them to trip up in. And I think that is what Chris and the guys over at SEC Unfiltered were getting at. We'll see. Football bonus, and we got 2 football bonuses because one happened between the time I planned this show and today. 3-star offensive lineman Jackson Christian from P&G commits. This guy's a big dude, 6'5", 310 pounds. I just wanted to talk about, and I got a chance to watch a little bit of his film. Pros, he's obviously big. He is very, very strong. He bullies people. Once he's got you, he ain't letting you go. I saw a lot of that on the tape. People were not fighting off of his blocks or getting away from his blocks. And I'm talking defensive line types all the way up to secondary types that he was getting to the second level on. Cons, I think he's a project. He plays offensive tackle in high school. He's probably not playing offensive tackle in college. I think he's going to be an interior guy at the next level. I don't think his technique is all that great because he is so big and all that strong. He stands straight up almost every play. His steps, when he does engage and he's got people locked up, he's very long in his steps. His stride is very long. That's not going to work at the next level. You can get put off balance really easy. He doesn't get his butt down like he's up. He's a very upright guy. He's just so strong and big that it works out for him in high school. I think his feet, and this is another reason why I don't think he's going to be a tackle, I think they're just kind of slightly above average. And again, I'm not saying any of this stuff to slight the kid. All of this stuff can be fixed at the next level with just some proper instruction and some hard work by himself. But yeah, he's a 3-star guy. I know the Texas staff has been on him for a long time. It'll be really and the Texas staff is to the point now where they are just trying to layer guys that they can develop behind that really outstanding class they signed a couple of years ago that is basically all the starters now. So I think it's a good pickup. I think it's a guy that Flood thinks he can develop. And we'll just see what happens with that young man. But congratulations to him. Congratulations to the Texas Longhorns for picking this commit up. Let's talk about DeCorian Moore. So DeCorian Moore commits to LSU like the day after, I think, Colin Simmons committed to Texas last year. And I don't remember when exactly that was. I feel like it was at some point in the season is what I feel like, but I'm not 100% sure anymore. And I remember saying, like, there is no way that kid winds up at LSU. I don't know. I mean, I know his boy Caden Durham had just committed to LSU. I think he'd been down there visiting. I think he got pressured into committing. And Texas has been on him and on. And I said that on the very next show we did. I said, this commitment is not a commitment. You don't commit 2 years before you're ever going to step foot on campus. It just ain't a thing. And so I said it a lot. I got beat up about it a lot. But I always had this feeling that he was going to wind up at Texas. And now he has not committed to Texas. But today, or maybe last night, he decommitted from LSU. And he said that his commitment is not open anymore, which would lead you to believe that he already has an idea about where he's going to commit to. He's not going on this Oregon visit that everybody's been talking about. So it looks like, and maybe we could get bamboozled, it's happened before, But it looks like the nation's number one wide receiver, Decorian Moore. And by the way, if you haven't seen this guy play, holy shit. I just find it amazing that Atascocita managed to beat Duncanville twice this season in the 4x100, because that Duncanville team just has some amazing speed. Obviously, that Atascocita team has some good speed and good exchanges as well. I saw, while we're talking about track, I saw a graphic the other day that said Atascocita, their varsity sprint relay team would have been the Big Ten champs this year. Just fucking amazing. 39s these guys are running. It is insane. So anyway, it's looking highly likely that Decorian Moore is going to be a Texas Longhorn. And again, I think, man, that's what I've been saying since he committed to LSU. It's just, there's something weird about it. It doesn't make no sense. He's going to wind up at Texas, and he did. Or he didn't. He didn't yet. We think he's going to. So I'm really excited about that, man. The wide receiver talent that Steve Sarkisian is bringing in, I mean, it might not even matter who they have at quarterback. There's going to be a lot of dudes open. So just having guys like Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, and I'm really high on Trey Owens, man. I think Trey Owens is going to be a damn good quarterback. Whether he sticks around long enough to do that at Texas, I don't know. I think he's one of those kids. He's like a Sam Ehlinger. Like, he is Texas all the way. At least that's what I hear. I've never spoke with him personally, but anyway, lots of good talent, throwing the ball to lots of good talent at the University of Texas. I think our offense is about to be just really damn good. Quick little deal on Dabo Swinney and the transfer portal. Man, if you don't know, Dabo Swinney has just not played the transfer portal game. He hasn't played the NIL game like a lot of other schools have, like most other schools have, especially powerhouse-type schools. And a lot of people, I'm probably one of them, feel like that's why Clemson hasn't been that good over the course of the last couple years. For those of you that don't remember, Clemson had a run where they were freaking outstanding. They were going to the playoffs all the time, and a couple times they were winning the playoffs. He had really built a power there at Clemson, and just recently it's just kind of gone down the shitter. And I think his attitude towards the portal is part of the reason why. And he gets asked about it all the time, and I'm sure what prompted this comment was getting asked about it. And he just said, quite frankly, there's not a lot of players in the portal that are good enough to play at Clemson. And I think technically that's right. Most players in the portal, and I think that's exactly what he said, was most players in the portal aren't good enough to play at Clemson, which is not a lie. Most players in the portal don't even find another college to go play at. So obviously they're not good enough to go play at Clemson. But this was like a Dabo Swinney typical little sneaky way to just avoid the question and avoid the topic altogether. You know, you say something that's true, hoping it'll shut people up, and they'll just kind of move on. It was a major deflection, dude. Dabo Swinney, if you see this clip, like, you're going to have to start messing with the portal. You're going to have to start messing with NIL. I think there are certain positions in college football that you can homegrown, and it's better that you home grow. But you got to play the portal, because all these teams, not all these teams, a lot of these teams, the big time portal players that are getting these really outstanding, but small. I mean, I'm not talking Colorado that's bringing in like 30 guys every year out of the portal. I'm talking about Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon. These coaches, these programs are getting better with just a few ads every offseason, and they're building like these super freaking teams. I mean, there's guys, Adonai Mitchell caught touchdown passes in all 4 playoff games he's played at Georgia. And he was a Texas Longhorn for a season. So that's the type of talent that some of these coaches are bringing in. You're going to get left behind, Dabo. And I don't care about Dabo. If he gets left behind, I don't care. I'm just sick of hearing about it. Like, dude, we get it. You don't want to do the portal. You don't want to do NIL. That's not what you want, but that's the world you live in. And if you don't adapt, Dabo, you're going to sink. Join us next week. We'll talk more Texas baseball. By the time we do our show, the Big 12 tournament will be going. I think they play start Tuesday, finish Friday or Saturday, something like that. So we'll talk about that. We may have some high school baseball next weekend as well. Don't know what the schedule will look like, but we'll do a show. Check out the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Follow and subscribe. Won't cost you guys a thing. We appreciate the support. Email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys have a good weekend. Get hooked.